Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again to What's the Difference, the Shaman King edition. Last time we saw the start of Yoh's team's very first shaman fight. After looking through the Book of How, they've gained great power, with Yoh even going so far as to say he would defeat his opponents in one strike. Now, the opposing team, Team Iceman, made of various European northern shamans, because they're from various different places, they took a lot of offense to that and wanted to show Yoh just how capable they could be. However, it's been shown that not only Yoh, but Faust as well as Ryu might have gained great power, with Faust in particular unleashing the power of his massive Eliza Oversoul Mephisto E. Now, for the manga and newer anime, of course, as I said, this is all taking place during the shaman fight. But for the older anime, this is actually taking place because Team Iceman overheard Yoh saying that they gained great power from the Book of How and felt very capable. It feels a little bit more petty in the original anime just because it's just a random shaman on shaman fight. Otherwise, there'd be no direct reason for them to come to blows over such a simple reason. It really does bring down the characters of Team Iceman, I feel, but we'll just have to see how things pan out for them in the actual fight itself. So we will be jumping in to Volume 15 of the manga, Chapter 131, Bedeviled, Episode 44 of the original Shaman King anime, titled One More Push, and Episode 23 of the newer Shaman King anime, titled The Power of Yoh. Let's check it out, shall we? I love how freaked out a lot of people are by just how massive and demonic it looks. The friggin' devil. I also love how he's just standing on her titties. No matter the version, the best vantage point is the boob platform. In the original, they attack, and even Hao's actually impressed by the power that Faust has obtained. Now, in all versions, he actually goes on to explain Mephisto E's naming, about how he carried out all this research to revive Mephisto. Well, why it's based off of Mephisto, kind of in honor of his ancestor. And the E stands for Eliza. They got that. And then he goes into the backstory of his ancestor. Although in the manga and newer anime, he actually goes deeper into that backstory. And we get to see a preview of Mephisto himself, which is just this surreal looking entity. It's pretty intense, dude. Like, he goes into some deep detail about how this entity is possible, mostly because it's just kind of like a Furyoku balloon. It's mostly made up of Furyoku with miniature parts just making up the rest of it, just kind of spread out, and going over all the weaponry she has, and even talking about the fact that Eliza was clumsy in life, so she had a tendency to stab people multiple times to find the veins. And in the manga and anime, she blushes. Whereas with the original anime, he simply just, after Eliza blocks an attack from Team Iceman, he just asks if she's okay. It's actually unfortunate we miss out on that little bit of flavor text, more or less, because it's a nice little bit of building on Eliza's personality, which we really don't get to see much of. I also love his theatrics. It's actually fantastic. He enjoys being a mad scientist so much. And also, when Eliza wipes his sweat, it's cute. I also love that the rest of the Team Iceman starts to kind of back down because they're just like, yeah, this is too much power for us to handle. And that kind of thinking is critical in terms of stuff like this. that's what defines Furyoku and all that. And Yo and Ryu are being so cocky, just kind of ignoring him more or less. At least that's what Pino feels. Pino wants to think it's nothing more than a bluff, too. However, in the original anime, Pino goes directly into asking why Faust is following Yo. Doesn't he want to be Shaman King? And he talks about the fact that he kind of already got his wish for becoming Shaman King, to be reunited with Eliza. And it's funny too because whereas in the manga and newer anime, Yo asking Faust to kind of join them was very much definitely coaxed on him by Anna. Here in the older anime, it's just kind of Yo being a nice guy. He was probably still coaxed by Anna, but it's still very much him just being a good person. It's actually very sweet. It's kind of portrayed as more altruistic. And just like all versions, they kind of feel sad about all of it. But also in all versions, it's Pino who kind of rallies them all together. Whereas in the original anime, you get a little bit of their flashback. Something you don't really get to see too much of, especially when Pino actually met up with all of them. What they were doing, what they were up to. That they were all kind of being cultivated to one day be Shaman King. Kind of rallies his allies together with him. And whereas in the original anime, it feels more like an attack of desperation, while it's still to a certain degree that in the manga and newer anime, it feels a little bit more strategic here. As Pino, increases his ability to freeze things, and then he goes in on the attack, basically targeting Yo. And in all versions, Ryu takes the hit, and then they're told to smash him, only for the ice to be immediately melting, and then you get Ryu's proclamation that ice that week would never stop him. I love this version of Tokugaro's look. It's very unfortunate he doesn't really keep that one around. And Pino starts to figure that they might just be the real deal. So they go all out with their attack. And they do their ice launcher again, which Ryu easily blocks. Then they go in for another attack, targeting Ryu directly, thinking that maybe just going in close they'll be able to finish him off. But Ryu completely dominates this situation. Ryu is such a badass here. Like, Ryu is at his most boss in this moment, whereas in the original anime, he basically just gives the spiel about basically giving himself over to Yo. Honestly, I like the fact that Ryu talks about the fact that they haven't attacked because Yo said he'd finish it in one blow. This is them showing faith because they haven't attacked whatsoever. And he basically gives the rhetoric of Yo, that they believe in him, all the training that they've been through, the power that he's obtained. I also hate that they don't talk about the brutal training that Anna put him through. It's actually pretty fun. But Pino takes offense to that because of all the hardship that they've been through, kind of wanting to make it seem like it was worth something. And then he increases his Furyoku, powers it up, altering the form of his oversoul. I really kind of prefer how it's portrayed for the first time in the manga and newer anime, because it's just such an epic moment for Ryu. Like, Faust got his, but this is Ryu's moment. And the revelation of his giant oversoul, the Yamato no Orochi, it's just so cool. Like, I love Ryu being intimidating. It's so cool. And whereas, Pino's intimidated in the manga and newer anime, but in the older anime, they just go on the attack because we've already seen these forms. Like, they're not given their moment of grandeur. Like, it kind of feels like it undercuts them to a certain degree. And I love this moment of revelation where Pino is just like, yeah, their power is just intimidating. It's overwhelming. And the audience is just stunned. And whereas in the manga and newer anime, Pino's kind of at a loss as to what to do next. And then they start to talk about the harshness of what they had to go through. And he starts to feel like maybe it was all worthless. Whereas in the older anime, after they launch into this desperate attack, I do appreciate that Ryu tries to appeal to them that they should be allying with each other in order to take down How. I mean, that is a major point. So, points to the older anime for trying to get everyone kind of rallied together to go after How rather than have these fight. Although it kind of paints a lot of the shaman fights that happen as very pointless then. And in all versions, Pino, it's kind of in a bit of a desperate state. And he thinks about all the hardships that all of them have been through. And whereas in the manga and newer anime, Pino continues on with his attack, in the older anime, it's Yoh who steps forward to kind of confront Pino. It kind of reeks of desperation to a certain degree. And whereas in both versions, Ryu wants to protect Yoh, Yoh is just ready to take him on himself. So Pino attacks, and Yoh is completely fine. And in the manga and newer anime, all of Team Iceman go after Yoh, and Yoh just embraces their attack and isn't even fazed by it. Yoh is completely fine, and in all versions, everyone wants an explanation, and then Anna gives an explanation that Yoh is very flexible. He has the ability to be almost unflappable in almost any situation. Like, if he had felt fear, he wouldn't have been able to take that attack head on. The Icemen's strength comes from their past and their hardships, something they have nothing of. And then he brings out his massive oversoul, and then he says one more push, just to kind of give Team Iceman a fighting chance, more or less. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about Ren kind of being here and witnessing this. I feel like it makes his character a little bit more interesting that he knew from the onset that Yoh was just going to win. The moment he saw Yoh's massive oversoul, Spirit of Sword, he was just like, yeah, Icemen's, they're not gonna win. And he just walked off. I don't know, it makes Ren kind of cooler because he was able to predict that at a glance, just by seeing the power of Yoh. And while Chocolove is confused about him encouraging Team Iceman in every version, whereas in the manga and newer version, Horo is very intimidated by the power that Yoh is showing off here. Because eventually, Ren's team is going to have to go up against Yoh. So it's a very precarious situation. Whereas with the older manga, they haven't split off into teams, so they're pretty much all on the same side. So Horo speaks from a place of faith rather than intimidation. And I like Horo kind of harkening back to when he and Yoh first clash, that even if he defeats someone, he doesn't want them to just have this resentment within them. They kind of accept their defeat gently. And, Haruhoro's fear grows into a bit of admiration to a certain degree. I like that progress from fearful because he knows what he'll have to face, but also a bit of inspiration in the fact that Yoh is just such a kind person. He can't just be mad at him, basically. And it's interesting too because in the older anime, Pino was in a little bit of a daze when he saw Yoh's oversoul because he hadn't seen it initially. He saw it as a bit of a bluff in the manga and newer anime. But in the older anime, the first time he sees it, he's kind of dumbstruck and his team wants to keep pushing forward. And it comes off more like he's kind of resigning himself to his fate, whereas I like the way it's presented more in the manga and newer anime because it's almost like one last defiant push against a great opponent. Like, it doesn't feel like he's resigned himself, he's just like, I'm just gonna keep doing the best I can. And I like the bit of a conversation and back and forth between Yoh and Pino. It's kind of a bit of respect. And I like Pino addressing his comrades like, hey, I'm sorry, You guys believed in me. We've been put through a lot, mostly you guys just in following me, but just will you follow me to the end? I like that. It really warmed me up to Pino seeing this. Them kind of rallying behind Pino. I don't know, it feels more impressive with them just facing this in the face of certain doom. Although the silent admiration that Pino displays as he thinks about what Yoh did in trying to basically provoke them in the original anime is interesting too. I like that as well. There's merits to both sides of this. And in every version, I love that in every version, Yoh looks at their attack and just calls it beautiful. Like he sees the power that they wield as it's bearing down on him, and he doesn't think that it's bad, he doesn't think that it's futile, he doesn't think that it's pointless. He just sees their power and calls it beautiful. I love that part of Yoh. That the fact that he embraces the spiritual side of things so fully and so happily. I don't know, it's just this nice part of Yoh's personality. And whereas in the original anime, it's Pino who comes to a lot of the realization of Yoh's character, but I like that it's more inferred on the part of Pino. And I like it being more of a reflection of Horohoro's thought, because it's Horohoro who we just have this very deepening of his respect towards Yoh. It's almost taken to another level. Like, I feel that moment where Pino talks to his comrades, that's that moment he's already grown to respect Yoh, but wants to just continue to carry his team on his back just a little bit longer. I prefer him having that moment of respect for his team, honestly. I do kind of admire this kind of inner heart-to-heart Pino and Yoh are kind of having. And in all versions, they get blasted away. And for the manga, that is the end of Volume 15. We went from chapter 131, Bedeviled, to 132, The Splendor of Ryu, to 133, The Power of Yoh, to 134, Another Go, Giant Halo Blade. And with that, we enter into Volume 16, as well as Chapter 135, Ren's Point, with an event that actually happened in the previous episode of the original anime, which, hilariously enough for the original anime, happened at the start of things with the clash between Yoh and Team Iceman, where Ren is thinking about rekindling his thoughts of wanting to defeat Yoh. I said it in previous episodes that Ren's rekindling of his rivalry with Yoh kind of almost to a certain degree just pops back up all of a sudden, as if they almost were just like, oh yeah, Ren wants to still fight Yoh, but that's because this is a manga moment. And I love that even at a distance, Ren can tell that Yoh won, and Ren is just kind of off considering the power that Yoh has gotten, whereas in the original anime, it's just him kind of lamenting things. And in all versions, Hao just kind of shows up saying that he can grant more power to Ren, and Hao is basically just trying to tempt Ren into being able to surpass Yoh. And whereas in the original anime, Ren is immediately defiant and tries to fight Hao, only to be stopped by Manta, in the original manga and newer anime, Ren kind of just tries to ignore Hao, but that's when Hao starts to tempt him a little bit. But Ren's defiant in the fact that he just believes in his own power for the most part. And I love that in this situation, Ren really does threaten Hao. And because of the mystery of what is Hao to Yoh, because they haven't found out about their relation yet, Hao gets to the point for the most part. And in every version he says that Ren will probably never be able to surpass Yoh. And I kind of like it better where Ren does go straight up on the attack in the manga and newer anime, but gets stopped very easily. And Hao just kind of leaves, and in every version Hao is just like, one day I will make you mine, Ren. And Ren's weapon actually crumbles because of the nature of Hao's oversoul. And I love it that it's Ren who actually now is able to immediately know that something's up with Hao's oversoul, but he's also intimidated by Hao and his abilities. And then we cut back to episode 44 of the original anime, and whereas in the manga and newer anime, Team Iceman is heading home, in the older anime, Team Iceman actually sticks around at the shaman fight for a little bit longer. And in all versions, Pino talks about his strict old man. I do like that Horohoro does kind of bond with Team Iceman, despite the fact that they had a bit of a clash earlier on. But then he also notices the fact that the rest of his team is kind of just mingling with Yoh and his friends. It's actually pretty sweet, and how relieved everyone is just to kind of be alive for the most part. And whereas in the manga and newer anime, Yoh isn't even actually there. He's just kind of dipped out for a specific reason. In the older anime, Team Iceman just kind of has a little bit of a send-off for the most part, even though they don't leave. Meanwhile, there's a meeting that never really happens in the original anime. One of Yoh and Lyserg. A little bit of follow-up that Yoh kinda has for the most part, which kind of shows the depth of how much Yoh actually cares about Lyserg. And that's it. Honestly, it's a very straightforward series of episodes, because for some reason the original anime wanted to make Team Iceman a big deal, but at the same time they condensed the showdown to all one episode, whereas the newer anime actually kind of took its time with the fight for the most part. Actually gave Team Iceman a little bit more of their own due. And for me personally, the way Team Iceman was depicted was just a little bit better in the newer anime. The best in the manga, but a little bit better in the newer anime. Because the showdown really did show the faith and devotion that Ryu and Faust actually had, which it's not like that wasn't lacking in presence in the original anime. It's just that they had their moment to just talk about why they're so dedicated to Yoh and the lengths that they would go to faithfully follow Yoh. And Team Iceman actually just got to kind of go out on a little bit more of a high note. I know both versions end pretty much the same, but it really did feel like it was an ant defyingly biting at a person, more or less. One lone ant. They weren't going to win, but they sure enough try to make it hurt for the most part. And honestly, it just kind of felt a little bit lacking for me in the older anime. But for the most part, a pretty straightforward comparison. Something that we haven't really received much of in quite a long time, not since the earlier episodes of What's the Difference for Shaman King. So tell me your thoughts in the comments section below. How do you feel about the showdown of Yoh's team versus Team Iceman and Pino and all that? Which version do you think did it best? Especially since we've repeatedly seen both Faust and Ryu's massive oversouls in the older anime, so they don't really have that much of an impact. Whereas in the newer anime and the manga, you see them for the first time, they're put on full display, along with Yoh and Mitamaru's Spirit of Sword. They're given this impressive presentation that really kind of wowed me for the most part. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications, and that way you won't miss out on the next episode of What's the Difference. And until then, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.